Good morning to you. Happy Monday. It is March 31st. Out here enjoying my first cigar. I know I breathe like a fat ass sometimes, but sometimes it's because of the cigar. Nice cup of That's Frank Mexican chocolate. I got 12 pounds of that bad boy inside. Anyway, today is March 31st. Not a good day for music. On this day, 30 years ago now, Cujo, we lost Selena Quintanilla. She was a rising Tejano musician, and she was just starting to crack into the American music industry and the American charts and everything like that. She was born in Texas. If you haven't seen the movie with J-Lo or any of the other TV shows or anything that's come out since, I highly recommend you look into her. She was a very talented young lady. She was only 23 years old when she was killed by her friend and business partner. And I'm not going to say the lady's name. I remember, and this will age me, but I don't really care. I remember sitting in my room waiting for VH1 and MTV to debut her new music video. And they were talking about her music and everything. And I don't know if I remember it correctly or not, but it seems like after that debut, they were like turning right back around to say that she's dead. And it was like, what the hell? Like, Dreaming of You and I Could Fall in Love. Those were my jams back in the day, because it was different kind of music. It wasn't Tejano music. It was definitely pop, but it was intriguing to me back then, because again, there weren't too many Latina musicians in the music world at that time. And it was nice to see some. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh man, she's going to be huge. And then coming home after school and hearing Kurt Loder, I forget how you say his last name, break in with an MTV breaking news to say that Selena had been killed, and just utterly heartbroken. And again, when I found out she was only 23, it was like, oh my God. So, because she was only like 10 or 12 years older than me, I was like, damn. And then that would kick off some other huge musical deaths that would happen for my life anyway, with the next being Tupac, and then right after that being Biggie. And it was just a bad couple of years for those of us that grew up in the 80s and 90s. And that's the trash truck, so it's about to get really loud. Today is also the anniversary of when Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed outside of his business by a friend, or someone that I believe was a friend of his at some point. And Nipsey was one of those guys that, I'm gonna pause this and come back, so just wait. So I was saying, I don't know where the trash truck is, but it'll probably get loud again when he comes by. Nipsey was one of those guys that represented the West Coast to the fullest. Like, there's all kinds of rap music, right? And the West Coast hadn't, in my opinion, really been represented very well. You had Kendrick, you had Snoop, you had Dre when he would put out some stuff, but it hadn't really been represented well since Tupac's passing. And Nipsey, I feel, as a hip-hop head, Nipsey was doing that. Like, Nipsey was giving us the bangers. Nipsey was giving us the same kind of struggles and stuff, like maybe not to the same level as Pac, but he was giving us good West Coast music. And I feel he didn't really get his chance to really blow up big. Jealousy is a motherfucker, and Nipsey was taken from us on this day in 2019. So March 31st is a bad day for music fans. March in general, because again, Biggie died in March. So, but that's beside the point. HOA drama for you. Now, I live in a very nice, well, not, I don't want to say like, when I mean nice, I don't mean like upper class kind of a neighborhood. This is a working class neighborhood, but it is a nice neighborhood. I love it out here. It's quiet. It's not too far from the city, not too deep in the country to where it's like, you know what I mean? So this is a nice area. And my wife and I needed a home because we had just had a baby. Another kid. We needed more room than where we were living. And where we were living at the time, we were in between, or I was in between jobs and about to move us to another state. And then I almost died. So my wife found us a home so that I could get better and so that we could get everybody under one roof and kind of regroup. So in our haste to get a house, we were willing to overlook some of the things that we said we never wanted in a home. Like, for instance, we have no basement here. And there's an HOA. And I understand why the HOA has some rules and regulations that they do, right? I understand why you pay them. They somewhat have a purpose. We have sidewalks. Sidewalks are supposed to be maintained. Our sidewalks are like this, so they're not maintained. We have common areas that sometimes don't get mowed like they expect us to mow our grass. But and then every year for the last 10 years that I've lived here, the first grow of the season is always the worst for my yard because I don't use pesticides on my yard because I don't want it killing the bees. The company that I was using for mosquito spray is supposed to use an organic one, but I found out that even the organic spray that they use is still harmful to bees, and that was heartbreaking. If you haven't seen that video on my Instagram, you can go watch that at Nick B Talks. But I try my best to be chemical free on my yard. All these other white people in this neighborhood don't do that. Like they spray everything, and I'm not that guy. Never have been, never will be. If there's weeds, you just mow them. And I know. I'm not trying to win any kind of awards for my yard, though. I want it to be a natural sanctuary. You're supposed to live with nature. You're not supposed to kind of like take it over. At least that's how I feel. And the HOA and me do not see eye to eye on a lot of things. So I got a letter. And the letter was telling me about mowing my yard. It had gotten out of control. I had contacted the guy that takes care of my yard, or the company that takes care of my yard, and been like, hey man, what's going on? They told me, they were a little bit behind because the season started a little bit earlier than it was supposed to, and March is a crazy month for us weather-wise. We've had, I believe we had snow issues, tornadoes, and now we're back into a tornado kind of situation today. But they got out here as soon as they could. And it's like, no big deal. And I know it's not supposed to be a big deal, but for me it's a big deal when I get a letter from an HOA, which is a company that can keep me from selling this house. They can place a lien against my home. So I started contacting my neighbors to see if they got a letter. And only a certain pigment did. And it's like, I I don't like to be the guy that thinks that there are people that get targeted based on how they look or based on what their last name is or anything like that. But since we have lived here, I'll give you another example. We had flooding pretty bad one year. And we had a bunch of sandbags in front of our house because our house got flooded. So we put sandbags in front in case it rained that bad again. We could just get the sandbags out and keep the water as best we could from coming in the house. I know it was unsightly. The reason our house flooded is because the HOA didn't take care of the ditches, because the people at the HOA were stealing the money. I'm telling you, this would be a great movie. Maybe one day I'll do it. But this HOA, which is run by a company in Pelham, Alabama called Selective Management, like I said on my Instagram, y'all some hoes. They tend to cherry pick who they want to yell at or who they want to send one of these letters to. Because I've got people in the neighborhood that I know that their yard sometimes gets out of control and they never get a letter. But they show up to those meetings, those mandatory meetings, and I never do. I'm usually too busy. And they almost always do the meetings on Thanksgiving or the week of Thanksgiving. And it's like, who the hell is going to come to one of these damn HOA meetings when they're coordinating family, coordinating, dinners and stuff where you've got to go see family and all of that stuff. Like, the holidays are a mess. And they do that intentionally. And it's like high school. I don't get along with people that want clicks and shit like that. That's bullshit to me. I get along with everybody for the most part. And if I don't get along with you, it's because you're a hoe. So I get a letter and I responded by email by telling them, this is pretty curious that only certain people whose yard is controlled by that same company, whose yards were just as crazy as mine, only certain people got letters. And other people who might look like me or have the complexion I do didn't. And it's like, one of the misconceptions a lot of people make about me is that I'm white. I guess it's the blue eyes. But I have Native American in me as well. And I've never claimed to be white because that would deny my father's ancestral people. I've talked about this in length. But the world is always trying to put me in the category of being a white man. But I talked to some neighbors that aren't white and found out that they tend to get these letters pretty regularly, whereas the rest of the people don't. And it's like, So I sent an email, and this is the first time I've brought it up. I've been dealing with this for 10 years. I do it the same every year. My yard always grows at the first of the season. It always gets crazy. As soon as the company can get out here, they get out here. I'm not spraying my yard for weeds. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to waste money and kill insects that we need, particularly bees. So I have stressed this. I've stressed this. Well, now there's a new lady that's handling the account, and it's not really her fault. As she will say, I'm just doing my job, and I understand that. But at the same time, I leave this house every day. I see my yard every day. Do you honestly think I don't know that my yard needs to be mowed? And if I had the time, and I know some people will be like, well, instead of doing these videos, why don't you get out there and do your yard? This is part of my job. This is what I do for a living. And it's like, I get it. I understand. I get where people come from with it, right? And believe me, if I could, I would love to get out here and mow my yard. I would, because it's cathartic to get out and take care of your yard. So I emailed them and I said, this seems to be like certain people are targeted of certain colors and other colors are given leeway. And I mean, hell, the own HOAs common areas, they're not maintained. I pay dues for those to be maintained, and they're not maintained. So it's like, why do y'all keep picking on certain people that don't bend to your will? I am not that guy. I've told y'all from the jump, I'm an anarchist. There's nobody that reigns over me, and it gets me in trouble a lot. So we'll see what becomes of this whole mess, and of course, I will let y'all know as soon as I get a reply from the email. But again, selective management in Pelham, Alabama is some hoes. There are bigger issues out there than weeds. There are bigger issues out there. That weeds don't impact your fucking house value as much as people claim they do. As long as the yard doesn't look abandoned, you're good. And if it hadn't been raining so much, my yard would have been fine. But since they sent a letter, it's like, okay, I'm not going to shut up about this now. So y'all get to deal with it. Day in the life of Nick B, I guess. I don't know. Just a random blog. Hug your loved ones each and every day, because you never know when the good Lord will call them home. For every dark night, there's always a brighter day. Life's just a party, and parties weren't meant to last. Do me a favor. If you've never heard any music from Selena, look it up and listen to it today for her family. Same thing for Nipsey. Even if you don't like that kind of music, just look into Nipsey and listen to what he's talking about. They were some very talented people. Y'all be good. I'll see you when I see you.